ولا تتمنوا ما فضل الله به بعضكم على بعض للرجال نصيب مما اكتسبوا وللنساء نصيب مما اكتسبن واسألوا الله من فضله إن الله كان بكل شيء عليما.
Do not covet what Allah has conferred more abundantly on some of you than others. Men shall have a share according to what they have earned, and women shall have a share according to what they have earned. Do ask of Allah His bounty. Allah has full knowledge of everything.
Do ask Allah for His bounty. Allah has full knowledge of everything.
This verse embodies a very important directive. By heeding it, man would be able to achieve a great measure of peace and tranquility. God has not created all men alike. Some are handsome, while others are ugly. The voices of some are sweet, and those of others repulsive. Some are physically strong, others are weak. Some have sound limbs, others have inherent deformities. Some possess outstanding physical and mental abilities, while others lack them. Some are born in favorable circumstances, and others are not. Some have been endowed with more resources than others. It is this diversity which gives variety to human civilization, and hence serves a useful purpose. Whenever man superimposes distinctions of his own over and above this natural inequality, he disrupts the natural order of things and paves the way for corruption. Likewise, when anyone attempts to obliterate all differences between human beings, he in fact engages in a war against nature and inflicts wrongs of another kind. Man is naturally inclined to feel uneasy whenever he sees someone else ahead of him. This is the root of jealousy and envy, of cutthroat competition and animosity, of mutual strife and conflict. These feelings often obsess a person to such a degree that whenever fair means do not prove effective, he resorts to unfair means to achieve his ambitions. In the present verse, God directs us not to allow this kind of mentality to take hold of us. The import of the directive is that one should not yearn for the good that God has bestowed on others. One should rather pray to God to bestow upon one the good which is in one's best interests according to God's wisdom and knowledge. The statement that men shall have a share according to what they have earned and women shall have a share according to what they have earned seems to mean, to the best of my understanding, that men and women shall have their shares of good and evil depending on the good and evil they have earned in using the resources bestowed upon them by God.
وَلِكُلٍّ جَعَلْنَا مَوَالِيَ مِمَّا تَرَكَ الْوَالِدَانِ وَالْأَقْرَبُونَ وَالَّذِينَ عَقَدَتْ أَيْمَانُكُمْ فَآتُوهُمْ نَصِيبَهُمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ شَهِيدًا.
And to everyone we have appointed rightful heirs to what the parents and near of kin might leave behind. As to those with whom you have made a solemn covenant, give them their share. Allah watches over all things.
As to those with whom you have made a solemn covenant, give them their share. Allah watches over all things.
According to Arab customary law, those who concluded compacts of alliance and friendship also became mutual heirs. Likewise, an adopted son inherited from his foster father. While abrogating this customary law, this verse reveals that inheritance goes to one's kin according to the rules for the distribution of inheritance laid down by God Himself. However, if a man has made commitments to people, he has the right to give away to them whatever he wishes during his lifetime.
الرجال قوامون على النساء بما فضل الله بعضهم على بعض وبما أنفقوا من أموالهم فالصالحات قانتات حافظات للغيب بما حفظ الله واللاتي تخافون نشوزهن فعظوهن واهجروهن في المضاجع واضربوهن فإن أطعنكم فلا تبغوا عليهن سبيلا إن الله كان عليا كبيرا.
Men are the protectors and maintainers of women, because Allah has made one of them excel over the other, and because they spend out of their possessions to support them. Thus, righteous women are obedient and guard the rights of men in their absence under Allah's protection. As for women of whom you fear rebellion, admonish them and remain apart from them in beds and beat them. Then, if they obey you, do not seek ways to harm them. Allah is the Exalted, the Great. Men are the protectors and maintainers of women.
A Qawam or Qayyim is a person responsible for administering and supervising the affairs of either an individual or an organization, for protecting and safeguarding them and taking care of their needs.
Because Allah has made one of them excel over the other.
The verb used here, a derivative of the root fadl, is not used to mean that some people have been invested with superior honor and dignity. Rather, it means that God has endowed one of the sexes, for instance the male sex, with certain qualities which He has not endowed the other sex with, at least not to an equal extent. Thus, it is the male who is qualified to function as head of the family. The female has been so constituted that she should live under his care and protection.
Thus, righteous women are obedient and guard the rights of men in their absence under Allah's protection.
It is reported in a tradition from the Prophet, peace be upon him, that he said, "The best wife is she who, if you look at her, will please you, who, if you bid her to do something, will obey, and who will safeguard herself and your property in your absence." This tradition contains the best explanation of the above verse. It should be borne in mind, however, that obedience to God has priority over a woman's duty to obey her husband. If a woman's husband either asks her to disobey God or prevents her from performing a duty imposed upon her by God, she should refuse to carry out his command. Obedience to her husband in this case would be a sin. However, were the husband to prevent his wife from performing either supererogatory prayer or fasting as distinct from the obligatory ones, she should obey him, for such acts would not be accepted by God if performed by a woman in defiance of her husband's wish.
As for women of whom you fear rebellion, admonish them and remain apart from them in beds and beat them.
This does not mean that a man should resort to these three measures all at once, but that they may be employed if a wife adopts an attitude of obstinate defiance. So far as the actual application of these measures is concerned, there should naturally be some correspondence between the fault and the punishment that is administered. Moreover, it is obvious that wherever a light touch can prove effective, one should not resort to sterner measures. Whenever the Prophet, peace be upon him, permitted a man to administer corporal punishment to his wife, he did so with reluctance, and continued to express his distaste for it. And even in cases where it is necessary, the Prophet, peace be upon him, directed men not to hit across the face, nor to beat severely, nor to use anything that might leave marks on the body.
وَإِنْ خِفْتُمْ شِقَاقَ بَيْنِهِمَا فَابْعَثُوا حَكَمًا مِّنْ أَهْلِهِ وَحَكَمًا مِّنْ أَهْلِهَا فَابْعَثُوا حَكَمًا مِّنْ أَهْلِهِ وَحَكَمًا مِّنْ أَهْلِهَا إِن يُرِيدَا إِصْلَاحًا يُوَفِّقِ اللَّهُ بَيْنَهُمَا إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ عَلِيمًا خَبِيرًا.
If you fear a breach between the two, appoint an arbitrator from his people and an arbitrator from her people. If they both want to set things right, Allah will bring about reconciliation between them. Allah knows all, is well aware of everything.
And if they both want to set things right,
the statement, if they both want to set things right, may be interpreted as referring either to the mediators or to the spouses concerned. Every dispute can be resolved providing the parties concerned desire reconciliation, and the mediators too are keen to remove the misunderstandings between them and to bring them together. Allah knows all, is well aware of everything. Whenever the relationship between a husband and a wife starts to break down, an attempt should first be made to resolve the dispute at the family level before it is aggravated and leads to the disruption of the matrimonial tie. The procedure to be followed is that two persons, one on behalf of each family, should be nominated to look into the matter together and devise means whereby the misunderstanding between the spouses may be brought to an end. Who should nominate these mediators? God has not specified this so as to allow people full freedom to choose the most convenient arrangement. The parties would be free, for instance, to decide that the mediators be nominated either by the spouses themselves or by the elders of their respective families. If the dispute is brought before the court, the latter also has the right to nominate mediators, representing the families of both parties, before referring the matter for a judicial verdict. There is disagreement among Muslim jurists about the extent of the mediator's authority. The Hanafi and Shafi schools are of the opinion that they normally have no authority to issue a binding verdict. All they may do is to recommend the solution they advocate, whereafter the spouses have the right either to accept it or to reject it. The exception is if the spouses have nominated the mediators to act on their behalf in regard to either talaq or kul, they will then be bound by their verdict. This is the opinion of the Hanafi and Shafi schools. Another group of jurists argues that the authority of the mediators is confined to deciding how the spouses should reconcile their differences and does not extend to the annulment of marriage. This is the opinion of Hassan al-Basri and Qatada, among others. Yet another group holds the opinion that the mediators have full authority both in respect of reconciliation and annulment of marriage. This is the opinion of Ibn Abbas, Sayyid bin Jubair, Ibrahim al-Nakhai, Al-Sha'bi, Muhammad bin Sirin, and several other authorities. The precedents which have come down from early Islam, however, are the judgments of Uthman and Ali. These indicate that they conferred upon the mediators the authority to issue judgments binding on both parties. When the dispute between Aqil bin Abi Talib and his wife Fatima binte Utbah binte Rabia came up for the judgment of Uthman, he nominated Ibn Abbas and Muawiyah bin Abi Sufyan from the families of the husband and the wife respectively. He also told them that if they thought that separation was preferable, they should declare the marriage annulled. In a similar dispute, Ali nominated mediators and authorized them either to bring about reconciliation or annul the marriage, whichever they considered appropriate. This shows that the mediators do not have judicial authority as such. Such authority, however, may be conferred upon them by the courts, in which case their decision will have the force of a judicial verdict.
وَاعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَلَا تُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا وَبِذِي الْقُرْبَى وَالْيَتَامَى وَالْمَسَاكِينِ وَالْجَارِ ذِي الْقُرْبَى وَالْجَارِ الْجُنُبِ وَالصَّاحِبِ بِالْجَنبِ وَابْنِ السَّبِيلِ وَمَا مَلَكَتْ أَيْمَانُكُمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ مَنْ كَانَ مُخْتَالًا فَخُورًا.
Serve Allah and ascribe no partner to Him. Do good to your parents, to near of kin, to orphans, and to the needy, and to the neighbor who is of kin, and to the neighbor who is a stranger, and to the companion by your side, and to the wayfarer, and to those whom your right hands possess. Allah does not love the arrogant and the boastful. And to the companion by your side.
The expression al-sahib bi al-janb, the companion by your side, embraces those with whom one has friendly relations of an abiding nature, as well as those with whom one's relationship is transient. For instance, either the person who walks beside one on the way to the market, or who sits beside one while buying things from the same shop, or one's fellow traveler. Even this temporary relationship imposes certain claims on every refined and decent person, that he should treat him as far as possible in a kind and gracious manner and avoid causing him any inconvenience. Even this temporary relationship imposes certain claims on every refined and decent person, that he should treat him as far as possible in a kind and gracious manner and avoid causing him any inconvenience.
الذين يبخلون ويأمرون الناس بالبخل ويكتمون ما آتاهم الله من فضله وأعتدنا للكافرين عذابا مهينا.
Who are niggardly, and bid others to be niggardly, and conceal the bounty which Allah has bestowed upon them. We have kept in readiness a humiliating chastisement for such deniers of Allah's bounty. Who are niggardly, and bid others to be niggardly, and conceal the bounty which Allah has bestowed upon them.
Concealing God's bounty is to live as if God had not bestowed that bounty. If anyone has considerable wealth and yet lives at a standard strikingly lower than that warranted by his income, if he shuns spending on himself and his family, and also on helping other creatures of God, and avoids providing financial support to any philanthropic cause, then he creates the false impression of being in a state of financial stringency. This is sheer ingratitude to God. The Prophet, peace be upon him, is reported according to a tradition as saying, if God confers a bounty on somebody, he would like to see that benefaction displayed. This means that a person's day-to-day life, his eating and drinking, his dress and his abode, and his spending on others, all these should reflect God's bounty.
وَالَّذِينَ يُنْفِقُونَ أَمْوَالَهُمْ رِئَاءَ النَّاسِ وَلَا يُؤْمِنُونَ بِاللَّهِ وَلَا بِالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ وَمَنْ يَكُنِ الشَّيْطَانُ لَهُ قَرِينًا فَسَاءَ قَرِينًا.
Allah does not love those who spend out of their wealth to make a show of it to people, when in fact they neither believe in Allah nor in the last day. And he who has taken Satan for a companion has indeed taken for himself a very bad companion.
وَمَاذَا عَلَيْهِمْ لَوْ آمَنُوا بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ وَأَنفَقُوا مِمَّا رَزَقَهُمُ اللَّهُ وَكَانَ اللَّهُ بِهِمْ عَلِيمًا.
What harm would have befallen them if they had believed in Allah and the last day, and spent on charity what Allah had bestowed upon them as sustenance? For Allah indeed has full knowledge of them.
إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَظْلِمُ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ وَإِن تَكُ حَسَنَةً يُضَاعِفْهَا وَيُؤْتِ مِن لَّدُنْهُ أَجْرًا عَظِيمًا.
Indeed, Allah wrongs none, not even as much as an atom's weight. Whenever a man does good, he multiplies it twofold, and bestows out of it His grace, a mighty reward.
فَكَيْفَ إِذَا جِئْنَا مِن كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ بِشَهِيدٍ وَجِئْنَا بِكَ عَلَى هَؤُلَاءِ شَهِيدًا.
Consider then, when we shall bring forward witnesses from every community, and will bring you, O Muhammad, peace be upon him, as a witness against them all. And will bring you, O Muhammad, peace be upon him, as a witness against them all.
The Prophet of each age will stand as a witness before God against his people. He will testify that he conveyed to them the true way of life, and showed them the right outlook and the fundamentals of moral conduct revealed to him by God. The testimony of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, will be to the same effect. And the Quran indicates that he will stand as a witness to the period beginning with his advent as a prophet right through to the day of judgment.
يَوْمَئِذٍ يَوَدُّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا وَعَصَوُا الرَّسُولَ لَوْ تُسَوَّى بِهِمُ الْأَرْضُ وَلَا يَكْتُمُونَ اللَّهَ حَدِيثًا.
Those who disbelieved and disobeyed the messenger will wish on that day that the earth were leveled with them. They will not be able to conceal anything from Allah.
يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تقربوا الصلاة وأنتم سكارى حتى حتى تعلموا ما تقولون ولا جنبا إلا عابري سبيل حتى تغتسلوا وإن كنتم مرضى أو على سفر أو جاء أحد منكم من الغائط أو لامستم النساء فلم تجدوا ماء فتيمموا صعيدا طيبا فامسحوا بوجوهكم وأيديكم إن الله كان عفوا غفورا.
Believers, do not draw near to the prayer while you are intoxicated, until you know what you are saying, nor when you are defiled, save when you are traveling, until you have washed yourselves. If you are either ill or traveling, or have satisfied a want of nature, or have had contact with women and can find no water, then betake yourselves to pure earth, passing with it lightly over your face and your hands. Surely Allah is all relenting, all forgiving. Believers, do not draw near to the prayer while you are intoxicated.
This is the second in the chronological sequence of injunctions concerning intoxicants. We came across the first injunction in Surah Al-Baqarah 2:219. In that verse, God merely indicated that drinking wine was a great sin, making it clear that it was reprehensible in His sight. This was quite enough to make some Muslims give up liquor altogether. Though many others still took intoxicating drinks, they sometimes stood up to pray while still under the influence of alcohol, so that they even made mistakes in their recitations. The second injunction was probably revealed at the beginning of 4 after Hijri, making it forbidden thenceforth to pray in a state of intoxication. This led to people to alter their drinking times. They drank only at those hours when there was no fear of their remaining under the influence of intoxicants when the time for prayer came. The injunction embodying unconditional prohibition of intoxicants was revealed not long afterwards. It should also be borne in mind that the word used in the verse is derived from sakr, which embraces not merely intoxicating liquors, but everything which causes intoxication. The injunction contained in the verse is valid even now, for though the use of intoxicants is such as has been completely prohibited, praying in a state of intoxication is a graver sin.
Until you know what you are saying.
It is on the basis that the Prophet, peace be upon him, directed anyone who is under the influence of sleep and dozes off again and again during the prayer to stop praying and go to bed. Some people argue on the basis of this verse that the prayer of one who does not understand the Arabic text of the Quran will not be accepted. Apart from taking things too far, such a conclusion is not supported by the words in the text. The expression used by the Quran is neither hati tafkhua, nor even hati tafkhua ma'takulun. On the contrary, the expression is hakka ta'lamu ma'nakulun, until you know what you are saying, rather than until you understand what you are saying. What is required is that while praying, one should at least be conscious enough to know what one is uttering in the prayer, nor while you are defiled. The word janaba denotes the state of major ritual impurity, and is derived from the root meaning to ward off. The word ajnabi, meaning foreigner or stranger, is also derived from the same root. In Islamic terminology, janaba denotes the state of ritual impurity in both male and female, which results from the act of intercourse or from seminal emission, either from sexual stimulation or from a wet dream.
Until you have washed yourselves.
One group of jurists and Quranic commentators interpret this verse to mean that one should not enter a mosque in the state of major ritual impurity, janaba, unless out of necessity. This is the opinion of Abdullah bin Masud, Anas bin Malik, Hassan al-Basri, Ibrahim al-Nakhay, and others. Another group thinks that the reference here is to travel. In the opinion of this group, if a traveler is in the state of major ritual impurity, he may resort to tayammum, for instance, symbolic ablution attained through wiping the hands and face with clean earth. This group considers it permissible to stay in the mosque in this state, provided one has performed ablution. This is the view of Ali ibn Abbas, Sa'id bin Jubair, and some other authorities. The opinion that a traveler in the state of major impurity may perform ablution if he is unable to take a bath is supported by consensus, but while some authorities infer it from traditions, others base it on the Quranic verse mentioned above.
If you are either ill or traveling, or have satisfied a want of nature, or have had contact with women,
there is disagreement as to what is meant here by the verb lamastam, which literally means you touched. Ali ibn Abbas, Abu Musa al-Ashri, Ubay bin Ka'b, Sa'id bin Jubair, Hassan al-Basri, and several other leading jurists are of the opinion that it signifies sexual intercourse. Abu Hanifa and his school and Sufyan al-Thawri follow this view. But Abdullah bin Masud and Abdullah bin Umar hold that it signifies the act of touching, the mere placing of one's hand on a woman's body. This is the opinion adopted by Shafi. Other jurists take an intermediate position. Malik, for instance, is of the opinion that if a man and a woman touch each other with sexual desire, their ablution is nullified, and if they want to perform the prayer, they are obliged to renew their ablution. He sees nothing objectionable, however, in the mere fact of a man touching a woman's body or vice versa, provided the act is not motivated by sexual desire.
and can find no water, then betake yourselves to pure earth, passing with it lightly over your face and your hands.
The detailed rules of tayammum are as follows. A man who either needs to perform ablution or take a bath to attain the state of purity for ritual prayer may resort to tayammum provided water is not available to him. Only then may he perform the prayer. Permission to resort to tayammum rather than make ablution with water or take a bath is also extended to invalids whose health is likely to be harmed by the use of water. Tayammum literally means to turn to aim at, to head for, to intend. The relevance of the term in the Islamic religious context is that when water is either not available or when its use is likely to cause harm, one should turn to clean earth. There is some disagreement among jurists about the manner of performing tayammum. According to some, one should strike one's palms on the clean earth, then gently wipes one's face, then strike one's hands again and gently wipes one's hands and arms up to the elbows. This is the view of Abu Hanifa, Shafi, Malik, and the majority of jurists. Among the companions and successors, Ali Abdullah bin Umar, Hassan al-Basri, Shabi, Salim bin Abdullah, and many others are of the same opinion. Other jurists are of the view that it is sufficient to strike one's palms once on the clean earth, then wipe one's face and one's hand up to the wrist. It is not necessary to wipe the arms between the wrist and the elbow. This is the opinion of Ata, Mahul, Awzai, and Ahmad bin Hanbal, and is generally followed by the Ahl al-Hadith. Tayammum is not necessarily performed by striking one's palms on earth proper. It is sufficient to strike the palms on anything which either has dust over it or anything consisting of the dry elements of the earth. It may be asked how one attains purity by striking one's palms on the earth and then wiping one's hands and face with them. In fact, tayammum is a useful psychological device to keep the sense of ritual purity and the sanctity of prayer alive in man's mind even when water, the principal agent of purification, is not available. The value of tayammum is that even if a man is unable to use water, and no one knows how long this situation may persist, his sensitivity to cleanliness and purity will endure. He will continue to observe the regulation laid down by the law in respect of cleanliness and purity, and the distinction between the states in which one may and may not perform the prayer will not be erased.